Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Want to ask the question tonight, and I don't know that there's no right answer. I mean, everyone's going to have their own answer. But why do you prep? Why do you prepare? Why are you working on your readiness level? It's a question that everyone should be asking, and I would guess that there's going to be a lot of different answers. I as much as I see this stuff that goes on every day, and I've been in preparedness for a long time. I mean, prior to Y2K. This is something that I've been doing for a long time. I remember in Y2K when everyone was, going crazy and stocking up and stuff. I kind of chuckled then because I was already ready. I already had my stockpiles of stuff and, food supplies and everything. So I've been doing this for a while. And over the years, I've seen a lot, I've heard a lot, I've read a lot. And I've seen this progression. And some of you that may be a little bit more new to kind of waking up and seeing what's going on in the world today, maybe you've been noticing it for months or the last couple of years. I just want you to know that this has been going on a lot longer than that. I mean, I've been in this game for more than 2 decades, and it's been happening that long. And if you can go back much further than 2 decades, there has been a very overt effort to change the world that we live in. I do believe it's biblical. Many of you agree with me. But beyond that, there is most definitely a group of people that are, they want to rule the world, and they're going to do everything within their power. And this has been over a century at least. This has been building and building and building. And as we see more stuff, and as I see more stuff, and I read more stuff, it's not so much that I'm shocked. It's almost a sadness that there's a confirmation to what I'd believed already, what I thought I knew, what I thought they were doing or were going to do, and then something happens in the news, and it just confirms everything. And there is a little bit of sadness there. And so I ask, why are you preparing? Why are you doing what you're doing? Is it because of a singular event? You remember that show, many of you watched it, Doomsday Preppers, and they always showed different families and people that were preppers and stuff. And almost every one of them, they were preparing for a singular event. There was one thing that they were preparing for. Is that you? Or are you just kind of doing this because you see the world around you changing so rapidly that we have to do something to protect ourselves and most importantly our family and our values and our communities. I was thinking a few times this past week, these past few days, what if, and I don't believe this is true, but let's just say, what if we're wrong about complete economic collapse? We're wrong about the supply chains completely collapsing, that all of this is transitory, and maybe it lasts longer than they originally said. Maybe the economy bounces back in another year or two. Maybe the supply chain bounces back in a year or two. What if all that's true, and it's not a complete falling out and collapse? I would accept that to be within the realm of possibility. But there is something that is collapsing, and there's something that's collapsing, and it's not coming back. I don't believe it is. I believe it's biblical. We know it's not coming back, and that is morality. That is traditional values. It's family units, religion, spirituality based on, God and Jesus, Yeshua. That belief system is being destroyed. And everything that surrounds that, families, traditional values, right and wrong, moral standings. And for some of you that may not be a Christian or whatever, but you still have moral beliefs. Most of the people that I've met that were agnostic or even atheist will admit that, yes, our morals are based upon, biblical truths. Those things are most certainly collapsing. This is something that I don't think anyone can get around. If this whole Great Reset, Agenda 2030, if their plan to, thrush us into the fourth industrial revolution and, advanced technology and, transhuman technology and all this kind of stuff, if it works, and, if God doesn't come back soon enough and it works, and in 2 years or 5 years or 10 or 20 years, by 2050 is what they're saying, that it will all be happening. By 2030, things will all be put into place, and by 2050, their little utopian dream will be happening. Let's just say that all does happen. Let's say we don't get knocked back to the Stone Age and we're not living in some kind of Mad Max Book of Eli world. That we do this brave new world advancement, into these higher advanced technologies. In my opinion, that's not better, and there's a lot of people that believe that that's going to happen, and there's a possibility they're right. I think many in my circles believe that their plans aren't going to work and everything's going to collapse and it's going to be devastating. But there's a chance that their plans work, okay? There's a chance that it's successful. Just like Klaus Schwab said, what was it, yesterday? I think I showed it on the video earlier today, that, they have the world in their hands, that they have all the power and all the money to live out and to do whatever they want, basically. These world leaders, they own virtually everything. They control virtually everything. We're just simply, little ants in their little, ant farm, okay? They control and own everything. So the possibility of their dream, their utopian dream coming true, it's very likely. I think for most of us, we just don't want to be part of that. We know that comes with tons of baggage. It comes with, all kinds of restrictions and losses of liberty and personal identity and all that kind of stuff. We know that, and so we don't want that. But the fact is that, we may not see this, complete collapse of society in the sense that it just goes back to zero. It may go really low, and then their plan, their reset kicks in fully, and then we're just thrust into this new era. But there's something that is collapsing. Okay, I believe most definitely. I think that there's no way around it, and I've already said it. It's morality. It's our traditional beliefs. That stuff is collapsing. It's being destroyed. I mean, we've got schools all across America, not in San Francisco, not just in Portland, not just in New York and all these other crazy liberal, Chicago and places like that. We're not talking just those places. We're talking all across the Midwest. We're talking in conservative communities and conservative school districts. There are absolute ridiculous, the most far left ridiculous things that you can think of going on. Just today, a little bit before making this video, I was going through my Twitter feed, seeing what was going on. Libs of TikTok, many of you know that. They shared videos of a school, and it wasn't, some crazy left, liberal area school, just a normal school, high school, and they were having drag queen dances and put on a drag queen show. They're extremely, extremely sexualized to high schoolers. Adults, some of these were adults that were doing this, and we've seen this before. We've heard of this before. This isn't new. How in the world can adults get up there and do the things that they do in front of underage kids and it not be illegal? But in the world we live in, that's okay. This is just scratching the surface, for years, decades, those of us, of the Christian faith, of biblical faith, we've for many years have been warning that the world, and especially America, is becoming less and less godly, less and less righteous, less and less moral. And more the church has accepted things that's happened. They've compromised, and they've said, well, we've got to compromise, because if we don't, they won't come to church. So we've got to fill those seats, and so we have to be tolerant, and we have to be accepting of all this diverse ideas and stuff. And we're in a place now that just about every moral fabric that this nation has ever had is being completely destroyed. Everything's been put into question. And you can't say that this happens every generation, because while every generation pushes the envelope, every generation goes through a period of rebelling against their parents' generation. This is the first time that we're seeing laws being made to support these ridiculous ideas. We're seeing things that go completely against the most basic beliefs and foundational moral principles that our society's ever had. Where they're taking young girls now and sexually mutilating their bodies, or giving them, or boys too, and they're giving them drugs to basically chemically castrate them, and that has been looked up as great. That wasn't being done in all these other generations. They weren't mutilating, and doing all this kind of stuff. They weren't preying on adults, weren't preying on children the way that they are now in the last 50, 60 years, openly, and it's being accepted and glorified. The things that are happening right now are absolutely repugnant. I mean, I cannot think of a better word to describe it and keep this channel G-rated, okay? I can't think of it. It's absolutely disgusting, the stuff that's happening. And so I know I'm going around the barn to get to the door. I do that often. But going back to the initial question, why are you preparing? If it's because you believe that the economy is going to completely collapse and hyperinflate, and the dollar's going to be worthless, and we're going to be thrust back into the Stone Age, to where we're riding around on wagons and bartering and trading, what if that doesn't happen? Because, to be honest with you, I'd say the odds are probably better that it doesn't happen that way than it does. I know that there's a chance. There's certainly a chance of hyperinflation. I think probably the more likely scenario is just as the dollar and the economy gets to that point where we're just a breath away from Venezuela and Weimar Germany, that's when they roll out the new digital currency and the global dollar and all that kind of stuff. So while it is possible for those things to happen, it's also very likely that they won't happen. And so my question is, what are you preparing for? Because if you're only preparing for those things and then they don't really happen, are you ready for what does happen? Are you going to be disappointed? Are you going to say, man, I watched all these videos and I spent all this time and money getting ready, and it's 2023 or 2024 and we're back to normal for the most part. I mean, things are different, but there's food and there's gas and you can get a job and there's electricity. It's different, but stuff's here. Not for any moment have I ever made any prediction that, we're going to go through some type of, knocking us back to the Stone Age. I have said that that's a possibility in different scenarios, but I don't think that that's necessarily exactly what's going to happen. Possible, but I do believe with all my heart what is completely 100% happening. And I don't think that there's any way around it, is that our the moral fabric of what we have been, not just as Americans. We're talking things that have been the moral fabric of humanity, that throughout all human history, only a very few societies have rejected these basic moral truths that have just always been. You can go all over the world, and even the most primitive tribes will say, yes, we should protect children. We should protect them from these evil things. And of course we wouldn't mutilate their body and give them these pills to do all this stuff. We could go all over the world and find people that would agree with that. This isn't just an American thing. This is a human thing. These are basic human beliefs, human truths that have been completely flipped upside down. My wife and I have been talking about this for the last few days, and my personal belief, a big part of it is because of the advent of media, television, radio, and then of course internet, and the rapid advancement of internet has definitely sped it along. Because for the first time in human history, you could see and hear ideas from all over the world that were outside of your culture. Before that, you go back from the 1800s and before, pretty much you were only influenced by your family and your immediate community. And then that immediate community was influenced by each other. Other than a newspaper that came in from the outside world, there was very little influence into that community from the outside world. Most people stayed within or near that community. And you weren't influenced by all these other radical ideas from all over the world. Well, now that's all changed on a daily basis. Everybody is influenced from all over the world. And some Yahoo comes up with some ridiculous idea, and before anyone even thinks about it, like, hey, that's a great idea, let's do it. And no one ever stops to figure out if it's a good idea. And that was the difference between communities before all this. They stuck with what worked because it had worked for generations, traditions and beliefs and stuff. That they'd always done it that way because it always worked, okay? That's the key thing. And so now it's like, every few days something new. How many different TikTok trends and all this kind of stuff. It's always something new. It's ridiculous. And these are all very non-important things that I'm talking about right now, but they all connect back to the big things that are absolutely flipping on its head our belief system. That is not changing. I believe with my whole heart that is being destroyed. And we have to prepare for that, folks. Along with the economy and the food supply, the fuel and the energy and the wars and them trying to take our guns away and trying to take all that kind of stuff, all our land, all that. We need to be preparing for the fact that the very moral structure of our existence is being challenged, and not just challenged, but destroyed. Because it's not just some kids running off to Woodstock doing stupid things and then their parents rolling their eyes. The parents and the leaders and the government and stuff are following behind them. They're like, yeah, we got to do that. We got to do that. We got to use all these different pronouns. And if we don't, you're a bad person and you go to jail or it's insane. It's absolute insanity. This we also have to prepare for, whether you have children or not. We have to prepare that we are rapidly being pushed into an era that humanity has never gone through. None. Technology changes and advances to where we've never been, but no matter what changes, whether it's economic, technology, all that kind of stuff, we always still have that basic moral foundation. We always have, our Americans and the whole world. Now that's being taken away. And we don't even know where this is going to take us. I mean, we do if we read the end of the Bible, but between now and that point is what I'm saying. We don't know where this is going to. We don't know how bad it's going to get. And I suspect it's going to get really, really bad. I suspect it's going to get worse than we can probably imagine. I mean, the things that we're seeing just in the last 2 years are worse than we could have imagined 5 years ago. 5 years ago, if I had shown you or told you the things that are happening right now in schools and online and things that are being done to kids, what parents are doing to their kids, 5 years ago, you would not have believed it. But yet it's happening. And we don't know how bad it's going to get. I suspect it's going to get horribly bad, really bad. We have to prepare for that too, folks. And that's where the preparing your family and preparing your heart, your soul, that's where that all comes in too. But we have to also prepare in ways to shield our family from that, homeschooling them, keeping them isolated from that stuff, putting our foot down as parents and saying, you know what? Cell phones and internet access just can't happen anymore. Like it's gone way beyond what's considered safe. I mean, there are things that we need to be putting into place, because it's not just about the dollar losing the value or not having enough gas to get to work or not having enough food on the shelves anymore. There is a absolute serious war for the hearts and minds of children and families and values, moral values right now. And we're losing that war, okay? And I suspect we will eventually completely lose that war. And we have to prepare for that, because, in my opinion, it's honestly a more serious and more worthwhile to prepare for than the food and the gas and the electricity and all that kind of stuff. That's important. But we're talking absolutely devouring children, that childhood, that innocent childhood, absolutely devouring families and moral principles. That's what's happening right now. Folks, get your houses in order. Prepare, but prepare for this also. Not just the physical preparedness, but that spiritual preparedness is very, very real. All right, folks, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.